I really like this young man, or his son, Hesaya. He just sounds so wonderful. Hello, hello. How is everyone doing? Thank you for being here, and thank you for spending your time with me. Welcome to another Udgon Weekly. So today we're gonna chop it up and see what this week has been like. And I also wanted to share something with you guys that's been, near and dear to me and speaks to the kind of things that, are often, that I often speak about, such as adolescent development, identity development, Somali identity, etc. So I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Hi, Amina. How are you? How are you? Love this young person. He just sounds so amazing. All right. Today just really has been somewhat of a quiet day. I've been trying to just kind of, reflect and write and just, think about the week. Week's been kind of disappointing. It's been a heavy week. And, it's Sunday. So like, getting ready for this other week. Tomorrow's back to work. So setting my intentions correctly and trying to, thank you, and trying to, set the right mood for the week. So how is everybody? I guess let's just get that out of the way. How is everybody? So Amina said she's good. I really like the live stream a lot of times because I can engage with people. It's one thing to like make a video and then release it and then people can just watch it on their own time. That is good too. But I like this live stream because I definitely am a person who feeds off energy and who also just likes to talk to other people and likes to engage with other people. All right, so a lot of people are saying thank you so much. Thank you. Heavy indeed, right? Heavy indeed, but we have to keep the hope. The verdict from the grand jury will just really put an already heavy week for me personally, even more of a damper, just really made me feel quite hopeless. I'm like, wow, tell me how you really feel about the value of, the lives of Black women. Tell me how you really feel. And the idea that, that police officer got charged for basically, as somebody else has put, the shots that missed, I'm just like, how is this possible? How is this possible? Whew. How do we keep the hope? How do we keep the hope? It is absolutely nice for you to be here. Thank you, Hamdi. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. This week has been, it's been one of those weeks, right? The marathon continues and we press on. We press on. We absolutely always and forever press on. So didn't really want to delve too much into what had happened in the week and how terrible it made me feel. I wanted to really talk about something actually good that happened yesterday. Yesterday, we had a community meeting here in the Columbus area, and it was a community meeting of Somali parents. And one of the organizers or Mahmoud who put it together called me and said, I would like you to come here and I would like you to speak. And it was really nice for her to ask me to share my thoughts. And I really thought deeply about, what I was going to say, because it's really big deal when people give you their time as you are doing today. I really appreciate that. But it's such a really big deal when people give you their time. So I thought to myself, what can I contribute to this conversation? The conversation was about mental health and opioid or drug and alcohol addiction among youth, and in particular, Somali youth, because there was a coalition coming together of Somali parents who are obviously concerned about this issue and want to learn more about this issue. So I thought to myself, what can I say about this topic? What can I, say about this topic that will add value, to the conversation? I didn't really want to go up there and tell people like what you're doing is wrong and this is all your fault, which obviously is not productive. It's not conducive for the conversation, but it's also just not very encouraging, right? So it's good to analyze the root of a problem and to figure out, what is happening and why is it happening. And so I shared my story with them. I shared with them that, as a young person growing up in this country, having a culture at home, having a different culture outside of my home, and how much conflict that created within me, and how my parents' trauma and basically the trauma of fleeing a civil war and coming to another country and starting over, how that trauma was basically passed on to me, and how I had to also recover from that secondhand trauma, but how their actions were informed by that trauma. So I talked to them and I said, I don't want to say, that what you're doing is wrong. I know you're doing your best, right? You came to this country with almost nothing, and probably nothing, with some hope of survival, and you tried to make the most out of the situation and you did your best. I don't know what it's like to flee from a civil war. I was too young, so I don't really remember much. So it's one of the things that our brains also do for us is we forget to protect ourselves so that we can make sense of life now. But I said, I don't remember what that was like. I don't know what it's like to leave everything that I know and everyone that I know. I don't know what it's like for neighbors to turn against each other. I don't know what it's like to start over in another country and not know the language. Well, I kind of know that a little bit because I came here as an adolescent. I was 12 years old, but it's easier. And we know that it's easier for younger people to grasp the language and to fit in with the culture than it is for older people who've had to migrate elsewhere. So I said, I empathize, with your situation, and I can imagine how difficult it is to start over. I can imagine as a human being how scary it is to go to another country that you don't know the language of, that you don't know the custom of. Everything is foreign, everything is unknown, and the unknown is scary. So you try to hold on to everything that makes you you. You try to hold on to everything that makes you Somali. And you try to create this little box of what it means to be Somali. And you try to make sure that your kids fit into that. And I understand. But what that little box did for me was it harmed me. I was put into a box that I couldn't breathe in. And naturally, as an adolescent, I rebelled a little bit. So that's the conversation, was shame and self-esteem, right? How is shame connected to self-esteem? What is self-esteem, and how do we put in self-esteem into our children, and how do we lower or break their self-esteem? So I talked about how my parents' fear of moving into another country and changing their entire worldview, basically, of what was life, how to live, was just completely changed. and they had to find a new way of living while still trying to hold on to who they were. And they created this, I guess, one narrative of how it means to be, of what it means to be Somali. So, and I think that's what happens to people when they leave their homeland. There isn't that, there is that less of like cultural diversity, because when you're among people that are like you in terms of ethnicity, language, and you're among other Somali people, you can be a little bit different. But when you're a minority in another country and you're all grouped into one person, and if one of your person does something wrong, all Somalis are bad or all Somalis are not so good, then you become even careful about constructing a particular narrative about what it means to be Somali. And I understand that as an adult, I do. But as a child, I was put in this little box. And when I tried to get out of what it meant to be Somali, as an adolescent, you try to find your identity, you try to make sense of the world and find your belonging. Where do you fit in? And the home life and the culture outside is different. So you have one foot in, one foot out. And the tiniest of misstep creates a fear so big in our parents that sometimes they do things that completely alter the course of our life. Okay? So what happened that altered the course of my life? So here I am, I'm about an adolescent, I'm 14 years old. I have high hopes, I'm taking summer school classes. I'm a science geek, I still love science. I'm a science teacher right now. And I have high hopes for the future. My goal is to go to OSU because I was living in Columbus, Ohio at that point too. And I was going to be a doctor. And my self-esteem, although it's developing, obviously adolescents, we don't know if they have high self-esteem, low self-esteem, like they're working through it. They're trying to figure it out. But at that point, I had something of a self-esteem. And then adolescence came, right? I want to experiment a little bit. I don't want to wear hijab. I put the hijab in my locker when I'm at school. I talk to boys. I still have self-esteem. I still have hope in my life. I still want to go to college. But I do what young people do, which is to experiment. And that created a sense of emergency into my parents that made them do or take an action that altered, the course of my life. So I have talked before and mentioned that I was sent to Kenya for Dhaqan Alis when I was 14 years old. I want to just be very clear that was a turning point in my life. I'm a young person and everything that I know is just snatched from me. And I'm taken to a foreign country because it is a foreign country to me. And whether I would have been taken to Somalia or not, like if it's not my surroundings that I'm used to, it's foreign to me. But anyways, I was taken to Kenya. And here I am at 14 and I am confused. I feel abandoned. I feel hurt and angry with my parents. I have to start over. I don't know the language. I don't have friends. I'm taken to people that I don't really know, who are my relatives. And my whole self-esteem crashes because I'm abandoned. And everything that I knew was taken from me. So now I don't have a footing. I don't have my feet on the ground anymore. That OSU dream, that college dream, gone. I don't think I even went to school that year. I mean, they enrolled me in school, but I lost that desire, right? So my self-esteem is floored, it's below the ground. And when you don't have that self-esteem, your self-esteem is connected to your ability to see value in yourself, your ability to have hope in the future. So if you don't feel like you're a valuable person and you don't feel like you have hope for the future, well, a lot of things are possible. A lot of things are possible, and you're capable of also doing a lot of things to yourself to kind of feel better, because nobody likes to be in that dark place. It doesn't feel good. It's not a good feeling to be here, but you don't know what to do because, again, you're like, if you were me, a young person, I didn't have a mother growing up, so that was already something against me. My parents, fled a civil war and are in a new country, and they don't know how to figure out this place, and they're trying their darnest to hold on to what makes them Somali and what makes them them. And then I find myself in a foreign country alone. So my self-esteem is floored. I have no reason to live anymore. But I feel really bad. And I do a lot of things to make myself feel a little bit better. Okay. So this is a conversation yesterday when we're talking about drugs, alcohol, sex, because even though Somali people don't like to act like sex doesn't exist, even though that's kind of the way we came, that is the way we came into this world. But there's a lot of things that a teenager who is abandoned and angry and alone and has a lot of time on their hands can do to make themselves feel a little bit better. Because I didn't really want to kill myself either, but I felt like crap. And I had to do something to make myself feel better. So when we talk about why do our kids use drugs and alcohol and they're promiscuous, we need to go back to why do human beings do the things that they do? And we need to even take a step further back to say, what do human beings need? What do human beings need to exist in this world, right? Other than the basics, food, water, shelter, what else do they need? Their self-esteem, how they feel about themselves, whether they are a valuable person or not, whether they believe that they are a valuable person or not, matters, right? Whether their identity is secure. So say you're not a child like me who was sent to a foreign country and their whole world crashes. What if you're a child, you're grown up in another country, the culture at home is different from the culture outside, and there's this constant confusion of who you are supposed to be? Who are you supposed to be? And the people that you're from, every misstep, you're like, you're not Somali. That's not what Somalis do. You're not Somali. Then who are you then? Where do you find a home? Where do you find a sense of belonging? It feels bad not to have a sense of belonging. It feels really bad. And that feeling, it's hard to live with. So people do things to make it bearable. Okay? People do things to make it bearable, to get themselves to a next day. And that, I know theoretically that is momentarily relief, right? You live long enough, you learn more, you realize, yeah, that was a momentarily relief, right? So another thing that we do is we count people off. We associate drug and alcohol usage and acting outside of what we consider the norm as that person noloshu ka dhacay way halawday khasaaro ku tag weyn. Now you have not made the situation better by doing that. You've actually made it worse. More, you have made it possible for that person to even be more susceptible to drug and alcohol abuse. Because shit, now they're worthless for real. And they're like, well, I don't want to feel worthless, so I'm going to try to do something to make myself feel better. Okay. So there's a lot of things here that I feel like sometimes we don't really talk about the reality of the matter. We say Somalis don't do this as though Somalis aren't human beings. We are. And maybe it's good for our self-esteem at times to say, it feels good, right? But the reality of the matter, that mentality at times makes it impossible for us to find solutions. Because if we're not like other people, then those other things that other people do, we don't do, but we do. And we need to reckon with that. We do have all the social ills that other societies have. We really do. And we can learn something from what other people have done to solve their problems. But if we can't even admit that there is a problem, that we are capable of that, because we're human beings and human beings are capable of good and bad. There isn't this Somali gene that makes us immune, right? Yes, people have different cultures and languages and such, but human beings are ultimately human beings. And we all have same basic needs. And a sense of belonging is really important. And in the way that we, as traumatized people, are raising our children, maybe your situation really wasn't as extreme as mine, but I still find fault with it. The way that we are raising our children in a new country as though they are in the old country, right? There's some grief there that we're unwilling to get through. And I know I was talking to my moinka last night. I said, I'm sorry. It hurts, right? It hurts leaving everything you know. It hurts starting over somewhere else. It hurts to see your kids adopt a new culture and speak English primarily like I'm doing right now. But that's my environment. It's my environment. And we know from the knowledge that we have accrued in human history that if you go to a new environment, either you adapt or you die. It's human nature, and a lot of species adapt to their new environments so they survive. And that's what a lot of people do. You come to a new country, they adapt. Does that mean you have to lose everything? No, but there's going to be some loss, and that grief has to be worked through. And we have to acknowledge that there is grief. There is grief in the loss of your culture. There's grief in the loss of your language. There's grief for the way it used to be. And the way it used to be, first of all, doesn't even remain. Even if we were in the old country, generation after generation, human beings change. So there's also that loss of control, right? We need to like let go of some things because we have minimal control as human beings. But anyways, I'll come back to my soapbox. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts. All right, it's not okay. Thank you, Naima. I had to get all that out before I could read the comments because I was like, if I read the comments, I'll get sidetracked, right? Okay, so. All right, so it's not your fault. Thank you. All right, belonging matters, right? And we say it doesn't. And we act like it doesn't, but it really does because it affects how we feel. It affects how we feel about ourselves. And the way we feel about ourselves influences all of our other actions. It influences how we take care of ourselves. It influences how we plan for the future. It influences how we interact with other people. It influences everything that we do, the way we feel about ourselves. So the main message is, as like parent and educator, what I really realized, I don't want to say I became a good educator or a good parent, okay? So I want to really preface this carefully. I became a better parent or better educator when I realized that it doesn't matter really what you say or the lessons that you teach to your children until they know you care. Until they know you care about them genuinely. They don't care about what you have to say. Because that's human nature. We want to know if somebody really cares about us. I have some people right now in the comments advising me about putting something over my head and what do you call it? Before you start preaching to people, do X, Y, Z. Do I know that person? Do I have rapport with that person? Do I know that person cares about me? Before that, I'm not even receptive to that message. Because first of all, that message is wrong. It's none of your business what I put on my head or not. It's not your business. So there's also that conversation, which I really would like to have, that pathological need for control, especially of our women folk. We'll talk about that. But today we're talking about kids and self-esteem and shame, right? So the connection of shame and self-esteem. When you don't feel, when you feel shame about who you are and you're told that you ought to be ashamed for doing this, or for doing that, or for doing this, that impacts your self-esteem. And your self-esteem impacts everything else. So the biggest thing here then is, what are we doing to build our children's self-esteem? And what are some of the things that we're doing that are crushing our children's self-esteem? So what are the things that we are doing to build it up? What are the things that we're doing to crush it? Right? Because if we don't build our children up in our home, they're not going to stand a chance out in the world. Okay? If we don't give them this internship, this training of what it's like to make your own decisions, what it's like to be your own person, and we try to control every little thing that they do, walk this way, walk that way, wear this tansubi, sasubi, how will they ever learn how to think for themselves? So we also need to discuss that letting go of the cord, letting go of the core. I talk to people on the internet all the time, and I'm conversating with people that are in their 30s whose parents are still trying to micromanage them. Why are 30-year-olds being micromanaged by their parents? If you still have to micromanage that child at 30, then we haven't done a good job as parents, right? Our goal is to build them up, make them secure, give them a strong foundation so they feel capable. And if they feel capable, they have a high self-esteem. Right? Remember, self-esteem is how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your capabilities, how you feel about your intelligence. Right? How do you feel about yourself impacts everything. So what are we doing to nourish that? What are we doing to nourish our children's self-esteem? And what are the things that we're doing to break it? And can we look at the vices that people use as a way, not that it's correct, but as a way that people are sometimes self-medicating because of low self-esteem. Now, maybe some people, while they were young, it's not a laughing matter, but sometimes kids are their own worst enemy. And sometimes they try things out of curiosity. They could have the best home life ever. Right? So how are we educating our kids about drug and alcohol also? Are we not talking about it at all? Are we only saying, don't do this, it's haram, and we don't say anything else about it? That's not, I don't want to say this is not an acceptable reason, because really it is an acceptable reason. But when you're a young person, you really need to hear more because you see in your society a lot of people doing things that are supposedly haram, but they do it anyway. So you're like, why is this one thing different? You know what? I'm gonna do it, and I'll ask God for forgiveness, and it is what it is, right? So we have to go more. We have to really talk about the detrimental effects of drugs and alcohol use. We have to talk about what it does to us physiologically and psychologically, right? We have to give them the why beyond it's haram. Because what I see is, this is haram, this is not, this is what you're supposed to do. And we need to know a little bit more about how our brains work and how human nature works, and how to tailor the message to a curious child who will want to experiment and say, well, I just want to see how it goes, All right, let's see. It's hot, you guys. These, what do you call it? Lights make me so hot. Excuse me. All right, I'm back. Woo, got a little hot there. Okay. Right. Okay. I don't want to derail the conversation or take away the conversation at all. But I just want to show you real quickly the kind of things that I deal as a woman on the internet, as a woman who expresses herself the way that I do, and as a person who's unwilling really to change parts of myself that I fought really hard to accept myself. I'm not going to change it for other people, right? Based on what I've told you, it's taken me a lifetime, really, a long time to like the person that I am and to accept many parts about myself. So it's not something I'm going to change, but let me show you the kind of things that I deal with. All right. What was it? That's one of them. All right. There was another one that said, there's another one, talking about my hijab. There's always, talking about what I do and how I present myself. And it's not from a Islamic perspective. You like to say it is, but it's not. It's a pathological need to control women, to put women in our place. And a lot of times, I just block them, but I just wanted to really show you the kind of things that I deal on an everyday basis. Like, you guys, it's an everyday basis. Every day I'm on the internet, there's a Somali man telling me that whatever hormar angare, whatever levels I've reached in my life, whatever I've overcome, none of that matters because I don't cover my hair. Let me ask you something. Do you ever think that that is actually going to influence me to cover my hair? Because now I associate covering my hair with abuse, and me doing it is going to be me being bullied into submission, right? And I'll tell you more too. Many times in my life, because of my refusal to wear hijab, I've been kicked out of my home. I've been made homeless, by people who are supposed to take care of me. So I don't really have a good association, really, of hijab. Now, I respect people who wear it because that's their choice. Emphasis on choice, right? But you have to know a little bit about a person to know why they do the things that they do, right? And I don't want to delve too deep onto what I think about hijab. That's a conversation for another time. But this is something that I deal with every single day I'm on the internet. Every single day I deal with this. And at some point, you're like, Skadaf, forget about it, just move on. Yeah. And one day you're like, you know what? I'm so tired, Anyways, all right. I really like this comment from Abdimalik. Thank you. We must practice unconditional love in our home as well. The world is hard and hateful enough. We must make our vessels of love and nourishment. You better preach. We say don't baby, but we say don't baby babies, but that's an oxymoron. They then seek that self-esteem and self-worth and validation everywhere. Listen, that needs to be framed, printed out, framed, put on everywhere. Please, we need to love our babies. Sometimes Black parents, whether they're Somali or not, really say that the world is cruel and that we cannot baby our babies because the world is cruel. I think, isn't that more reason to love our babies even more, right? So that they know they're deserving, despite what the world says. Despite what the world says, they are deserving. But when we reiterate what the world says about them, about their existence, then we're killing their spirit. And the spirit doesn't like to be killed. It will fight to feel okay about itself again, right? So some of these things that we see in our community are symptoms, right? They're symptoms. They're not the root of the problem. And we say dadka khamrada abo and the drugs and all that, they're bad people. You can say those actions are bad, but when you put the action and the person together, then that person doesn't have any chance for redemption. They don't have any chance or even an incentive, really, to get better because you've already written them off. And that's what we do. And I've seen that many a times. And there's another part of me that I'll share with you guys here in the near future that also had me written off. I've stumbled and fell very, very many times. And it's taken me a long time really to find my 2 feet on the ground, So that's why I try to come from an understanding, non-judgmental place. I fought for the person that I am, to be who I am, to love myself, to respect myself, to wake up in the morning with hope, to wake up and know that I'm valuable and I can contribute to this world. And I'm not willing to ever give that up because I fought so hard for that. I don't want to make my child fight for that. I want to give that to him at home. I want to tell him that he's valuable all day, every day. Because I don't want to break him. Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to raise, but what did he say? It's easier to raise whole children than to repair broken men. It's easier to raise well children, right? We plant the seeds day by day, bit by bit, so that they have a buffer. Because life is life. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? But when you're broken inside, it's hard to navigate this life. It's hard to navigate this life. You stumble and you're angry and you want to feel better. You might do some things that are not good for you to feel better. And maybe you might be on a self-destructive road like I have been for a very long time until maybe something stops you dead in your tracks. And for me, it was my child. When I had my child, I had to just stop. I was like, you know what? Maybe your life is over, Frah, but this child, his life is just starting. Because up until that point, I had been told that I was worthless. And it was even worse when I had him, because then it was like, oh, you're really worthless now, right? So I thought to myself, it's okay that your life is over. But his life, it's just starting right now. So that sense of duty, that responsibility, that's what stopped me in my tracks. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't have my child. I don't know where I would have been. I don't know if I would have been right here in front of you. Thank you, sis. I really appreciate that. Thank you. It's really hot, you guys. It's the lights and everything. We get a lot of abuse online, and it's a daily battle. Um, but we have a right to exist. Some people will tell you, well, why do you put yourself out there? Why do you even come on the internet? Why am I not doing what I want to do and participating in my society as a free person? Because some people want to dictate, or a lot of people, let's be real, the general public, Somali society says that a woman like me, given my life history, should have no reason at all to speak. Why would I want to succumb to that? Why? I have a right to exist. I have a right to pursue happiness. I have a right to contribute to my society. I do have a contribution to make. Right? But if you listen to the prevailing voices, the prevalent attitudes about women like myself in particular, we're written off a long time ago. And you have to fight. You have to fight day in, day out for that existence. And some days, some people, I've talked to other people, they ask me, Frah, why do you even bother? Do you really even have to? Do you have to engage with the Somali public? You live in America, you could actually not even see them at all. I don't want to not see my people. I don't want that. I don't want to not see Hoy Somali, Ader Somali. I don't want that. I don't want to not hear the Somali language. I don't want to not go to a Somali restaurant. It's a big part. Being Somali is a big part of who I am. I don't want to lose that. I'll feel like a part of me is always missing. But to exist in my community day in, day out, the way that I am, it's been difficult. It's been really difficult. And it is easier to some degree to just walk away and be like, you know what? I live in a country where we're already minorities. I got other battles to fight. I could do that, but I don't want to. I love my people. I love engaging with my people. I love talking with them. I love learning about Somali history, Somali language. And we have that, kind of perpetual like duality, especially when you're like 1.5 first generation. You got one foot out. You don't have both your feet in. Maybe my son will have both of his feet in, even though I try to like influence him and, try to retain some heritage there. But there's also that. It takes a lot to be in two different places at the same time. I know what's going on in America because it affects me directly. I know what's going on in Somalia. Like I'm there because I care. There's a part of me is not here, right? So not having any contact with my people, like I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that. But then to fight every single day for validation, for affirmation, for you to even be left alone. Please leave me alone. Stop commenting on what I wear. Like just that every single day gets tiring, and it chips away at a person. It really does. It chips away at a person. And it's just like, gosh, I don't know how long I can do this for, Well, then I meet wonderful people like my sister here, Zainab Habon. And I want to say Zainab has a huge influence really on who I am, the kind of things that I've learned from you in terms of being Somali, in terms of being Muslim. Like, I'm telling you, religion has been a thorn in my side for a very, very long time. And I think I'm finally calm, right? But how that came about was I had to become okay with myself. I had to accept myself, had to love myself. That's how I got here. All right. Let's see. I can completely understand your frustration, Abai, but believe me, people like us appreciate the work you do for us. We love you, and I would hate not to see you. You have a beautiful soul, and keep this up. I really appreciate that, Abai. Thank you very much. Parents need to stop enforcing rules into their children just so that others can say that they did a great job. A lot of the times it comes down to honor-based abuse. It allows how others see your child. Your child is always good enough. You didn't know what your child would be like before. Your child is good enough. They come into this world pure, really. Everything that they come to know, they are taught And a lot of times we teach them that because we are the biggest influences in their lives. And it's not because we say even do this and do that. They watch us, they listen, and they see if what we say matches what we do. They watch how we treat other people. They watch if we keep our word. If we say we're going to do something for them, do we actually do it? You know, they see if we are honest with them, right? So all of the values really that we teach our children, we teach them by just being. We teach them like a lot of times by they're just watching us. And they, oh my goodness, they are watching all the time. All the time. They really are. So when we say like parents are the biggest teachers or like yes. There's so many things that my son does that I do, you know, and I'm like, ugh, I can't even say anything because I did that, you know. Right. So the conversation, honestly, is going to be ongoing. It's going to continue. There's so many layers to it. You know, I obviously angry teenager, still very angry and unhappy young adult to like, I'm okay, you know, I'm like, I'm calm, you know, life is calm. The reason also I'm calm is really that my life is calm, right? Having secure career, secure income, health, a roof over my life, over my head, like that stability also really, we can't discount that. That also leads to more internal stability, right? So we do need to think about how outside factors also impact internal factors. So that's another reason my life is calm now, like in my 30s, right? I'm still going to pursue education further, but haven't pursued my education, haven't finished it at this level at least, and gotten a career. It has made my life, you know, a bit stable. It's just a little bit calmer. So that leads me to think more now, reflect on my life, reflect on things I've gone through, go to therapy, you know, talk it out, learn multiple perspectives. You know, as you guys know, I'm a talker, but a lot of times I talk to older people, you know, I talk to Mamoinka, I talk to the uncles. I just listen, you know, I just want to hear what they have to say because I value people's intellect. I value their experience, and there's much to learn about them. Learning is not only about what you find in the books. You know, people have lived and they've seen many days, and they have, you know, seen some things that work and some things that don't work. So I'm really always interested in talking to people, and that's just having that multiple perspectives also has shown me the diversity in Somali society. Because the way I grew up was, it was just such a narrow definition of being Somali. I wanted to be anything but, you know, I was so constricted. It was like I was suffocating. And then I met other people, other Somalis that had different ways of being Somali, and they were still Somali. And I was like, wow, like you've just opened up a whole new world for me. Like, thank you, you know? So it's really amazing, like meeting all of the people that I have, and I've met them, a lot of them on the internet. So that's why I will remain on the internet, no matter who likes it or not. But yeah, there's much really that we need to do research on, and there's a lot of discussions that we need to have, and we do need to discuss that trauma that our parents went through, and how their traumatic, you know, how their trauma informed their parenting, and how that was passed on to us, and how our trauma informs our parenting. I feel that I have definitely passed on my trauma. You know, I was a struggling, surviving 20-year-old, you know. I look back and I'm like, yeah, I tried to mitigate, you know, I tried not to pass on too much trauma. I tried to be intentional, but just the life circumstances, being a single mother, not having family, you know, not having, you know, his father in the picture, like all of those things, trying to pursue college education, despite all that chaos, there was definitely trauma passed on, you know, regretfully. But the hope is that as the generation goes on, we minimize that trauma. You know, we give our children an even stronger foundation, so they give their children a stronger foundation, and so on and so forth. And we stay realistic about what we can hold on to. You know, we change, we evolve. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. You know, a culture isn't static. Culture is something that's dynamic. People make it. So maybe I don't know exactly what Somali parents what Somali mothers go through, right? Because I only have one child, because I've seen many that have a lot of children, and I have made that comparison and said, oh my God, like, you got like about 5 of them and you're holding on, you can, we've normalized that struggle. We've said that that's normal. It's not normal. One person shouldn't be raising a child on their own. Not even 2 people should. Really, we need a village. We need more people. But at the minimum, right, we should have the 2 people that made them, right? That's just common sense. So we've normalized that. And we need to not normalize that. So I am hoping, I don't know, even people in my generation are going through that. I see women that I grew up with that are, raising 3 or 4 kids on their own right now. Now, for me, I said, one is done. I went through the struggle already, and I ain't doing it again, because the struggle is real. And I got some PTSD, and I want to heal, and I'm not going to do that again to myself. So, children are a blessing, right? But if you know that you need to heal, you should focus on the healing first, So I have no regrets about that. Like, having my child gone through everything, it was destined to be, and he saved me really from myself, and has given purpose and meaning to my life that I didn't have before. So, but raising a child on your own is still nonetheless difficult. And there's definitely trauma that single mothers have. You're just one person, like, how many places are you going to be the one that works and brings home the bread? Are you going to stay at home with them? How many school conferences can you go to? Doctor's appointments? When will you take care of yourself? Is there ever a time even Somali mothers take care of themselves? What I felt for them really, yesterday when I was talking to Mamoink Somali, I was like, I seen, the kind of things Mamoink Somali Somara. Yeah, I'm never gonna stand in front of you and say you're doing it wrong, or you're doing something terrible. It's just some of these reality of our situation needs to be discussed. The trauma needs to be discussed. We need to find some solutions. We need to look at someone's behavior and look at the underlying root. We need to look at the behavior as a symptom and look at the root of the problem, right? But Mamoinka Somalia, I feel for them and I applaud them and I salute them, and they just, they deserve much better. They deserve much better. They deserve so much better. Thank you. Being a mama can be tough, but always remember, in the eyes of your child, no one does it better than you. So if you have one or more, then it's hard work. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. We really need to be intentional about healing from our trauma. We need to be intentional, and we need to hold more space for people, understand, where we came from, understand what people are dealing with, understand that our upbringing and our society's values hold a strong hold on us and how we feel about ourselves and how we interact with the world, And remember that we don't have to pass on the trauma. We're intentional about healing. We can be real with our children. Like, my son is 13 years old. I talk to him. I tell him some things that I've done. Yeah, you got to be real with them. I told him. Obviously, the older that they get, the more, nuanced conversations that you can have with them. At first, you fear because you're a parent. You're up here, and if you tell, what you've gone through with to your child, that you might go down a notch in their eyes, but that's not true. They respect you more for being honest, for being a real human, right? Understanding that our parents are real humans. They have thoughts, and they have, they have dreams, and they make mistakes, and, they're just human. And that really has allowed me to, also forgive, my parent. I only have one, I only have my father, allowed me to forgive him, because I can't imagine what life was like, coming to a new country and having a child that has a different mother and trying to keep the peace in the home. And I can only imagine that. So I empathize with him as a human being. But for me and my child, I talk to him real talk, honey. This is what I've done. This is what my life was like. These are the things that I've done to make myself, feel better. It wasn't right, but I was in a lot of pain. If you ever feel like something is wrong and you're not right, talk to me. I'm always going to be there for you. Whether you do good or bad, whatever, I love you and I got you 100%. They need to know that we got them 100% and that we love them unconditionally. Unconditionally means whether they do good or bad, right? I remember a lot of withholding of love and affection in my childhood. That messed me up. So I try not to do that to my child. Like sometimes we unintentionally pass on behavior, but I try to intentionally not do that. I try to intentionally, after we have a conversation about something that was done wrong by him, that, hey, I love you. You are not your actions. That was not a good thing. You're still a great person. And you have potential to do good and bad. And it's our choices that matter. It's our choices. We choose. So be very considerate and conscious of your choices, So I don't ever want to attach the person and the deed, because a person is not the deed, right? So when we talk about the ills of our society too, we need to talk about the ills being bad. And not qofkaas alcoholista waay, qof xun waay, noloshu ka dhacay. Qoftaas maxaa la yirahdaa, she doesn't wear hijab, she's a really bad person. I actually had that happen to me. I was somebody that I was really close to, and their child basically said to me, my ayaya said that you're a really bad person because you don't wear hijab. But I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're a nice person. It was a child, 9-year-old child, that said that to me. That's the kind of things that we say to our children, right? And I've seen that before. Qofkaas wuu xun yahay because hijab maxirato, right? We reduce our person's entire morality, right? Entire good or bad, their character, to whether they wear a piece of cloth on their head or not. I think that's wrong. And I don't want to be judged by that. I think that's very, very hurtful to reduce somebody's morality to that. But that, that happened to me, and I didn't know what to say to that young child. And I was like, thank you. Like, I didn't want to say anything about their grandmothers. So I said, thank you. That's all I said. But imagine that child that hears that, though. They said, I see what my ayaya said, but I still think you're a nice person, because the way I've interacted with her was in a nice way. And she could separate the two things. Like, you don't wear this, but you're a nice person, So, right. So this, yeah. No comments. Thank you very much for listening. I love talking about, obviously, culture and society and politics, right? And maybe Somali na and I love the siyasa too, but and I didn't really want to, I guess, make the show about me. Since this came up yesterday, and I thought to myself, this is really important, and we do really have a lot of people that are hurting, and I feel like any platform worth having is one that you can be real with people, and where you can talk about the reality of life. Life is interesting. Doesn't always go how you want it, right? Things fall apart. How do we get back up? I know a lot about that. And I can tell you a few things about that. How do we get back up? And that's what I like to share with people. Hey, this happened to me, and this is what I did as a result, and that wasn't really a good thing. So you could try to do something different, Yeah. There's just like that reduction to like reducing a human being to that. It's just very hurtful. It's just very hurtful. It's like, how do you even, and then, or people just at talking to you in public, telling you, "Mad hijabat istan mad subis istan mad subis." Like, who are you, first of all, and why are you talking to me? But I'm really a polite person. When I was younger, I would say thank you, inshallah, whatever. Now that I'm older and a little bit stronger in myself, I just tell them that's none of your business, and I don't appreciate you telling me that. I didn't ask you. Would you like me to discuss things that aren't my business? Your relationship with your husband, what your kids are doing, I don't know, the color of your car. Like, those things are none of my business. Like, there's things that are a person's personal affairs. And then there are things that are just kind of society-wide issues. And women's clothing, right? Any society really that makes women clothing a measure of whether a person is morally upright or not, that's problematic, right? If my entire moral compass as a human being is reduced to what I wear, you have no idea what's in my heart. I find that problematic. And it's also gendered, right? It's only women that are held to that standard. So I have a problem with it twofold, that women are held to that standard only of the sexes, and that my entire moral compass, my entire character as a person is reduced to that. Like, I'm a human being, and men are judged by their actions. I want to be judged by my actions. And the action is not that I wear a hijab or not. The action is just other things that I do, the way I treat people, the contributions I make to my community. That's what I want to be judged on, No, it's not something to move on with, Mukhtar. It's so easy for you to say. So this is when white people say, why do you talk about racism so much? I want to address this. You talk about something that affects you, right? You have talked about something that affects you. If it doesn't affect you, you obviously minimize it, right? I deal with this every single day in this society. Every single day. It's a thorn on my side, right? So it's like you living in the West as a marginalized minority person, the way that you're treated because you're a marginalized minority person, obviously, it's something that bothers you, all right? So don't tell me to move on, all right? Don't tell me at all to move on. And it's one of the things that I have an issue with, people minimizing other people's experiences, and people especially telling women not to talk about this or not to talk about that. I am judged by what I wear. I find fault with that. As long as I'm judged by what I wear, I will continue to challenge it. It is what it is. If there is something wrong with it, if it's not welcome, it's not welcome at all. So if I make it clear that it's not welcome, you've violated my boundaries, right? So, and I think that's really a topic that we need to talk about, boundaries. I've made it clear many times, I'm a public person, I'm on social media, I talk about things in our society, and I have said, I don't want you to approach me in this way. Please keep your comments to yourself. So once you know that, and I've made that line, that boundary, and you step over it, you've crossed my boundaries, you've offended me. You've basically told me what I think about myself and what I want to happen to me or not is like nothing, means nothing to you. So do you really think I'm going to listen to you then? Do you really think I'm going to have any respect for what you have to say then? No, right? If you dehumanize me and say what I think doesn't matter, because A, maybe because you think women shouldn't have a say word, or B, because I'm a woman who doesn't wear hijab, I shouldn't have, my words don't matter, then I don't really care to hear what else you've had to say. Remember, the topic today was self-esteem. What you're saying is an attack on my self-esteem, because it's attempting to influence how I feel about myself. And I have to go against that because I'm protecting my self-esteem. Because like I said, I fought really hard to get to this point. Okay, so I can't do that. I cannot leave it alone. Sometimes I address it, sometimes I don't, because you have to be very particular about your energy, right? But if something is like persistent and you're constantly bothered about it, someday you're going to be like, you know what? I am so tired of this. I'm going to say something. And some days I'm like, we got a little energy today. Let's do what we can, that we need to do. This doesn't deserve your energy right now, but it is a thorn. It is a thorn, and it's not a generalization. It is actually a part and parcel of our community's narrative about good versus bad women. We can talk about that next time. Really, because it's something that needs to be discussed. It is a measure that is used in our community of whether a woman is good or bad, right? And it immediately discards me as a bad person. So I have a problem with it because you don't even know me, right? So I have a problem with it from the gate, right? If it's something that's used to measure my morality, it's something that automatically categorizes me as a bad woman. And you know our culture, and I don't know why you're saying that this isn't true. So there's that deflecting, which it's interesting that a lot of us really, and obviously I'm speaking in English and everything, but a lot of us really, we live in these Western countries and we know what it's like to be marginalized based on our culture, based on our ethnicity, color, religion. We know what marginalization is. And we talk about microaggressions and we talk about the way we're treated at work or at school, right? But the moment a Somali a woman says, in my community, I'm treated this way because XYZ, or I receive these microaggressions, oh, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Really though? Really though? I think it because it doesn't impact you, right? You can say that. You can say that. It doesn't impact you, so it's nothing to you. That's fair. But it's something to me because it impacts me. Right, Zainab, and I understand that completely, which is why I said I don't always address it because I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy. There's so much things I want to talk about. I want to talk about women education. I'm an educator. I want to talk about how to, for women to have more access to education, for women to have more financial freedom. I want to challenge, the patriarchal perceptions of what women can do, whether women can be in leadership. There's more pressing issues than my hair. And again, it's a personal matter that as a society, we've made it a public affair. So when we say we made it a public affair, we're saying women's attire isn't their own dominion, isn't their own personal affair, but it's a society's affair. It's everybody's business. And that means I'm being dehumanized because the agency and autonomy is being taken from me when my dress becomes a public affair. So I don't always have the energy to address it, but because this is a thorn on my side, constant thorn, I can't go anywhere without somebody fixing their mouth to say something about it. And I'm like, it's okay, but why did I even come here? Again, I used to be polite. And I'm using polite because, again, I'm a polite person. I used to be I think that it wasn't worth my trouble to challenge it, And again, it goes back to self-esteem. Like my self-esteem wasn't strong, and I felt maybe that they were right? But now I'm like, I don't care if you're right or not. You don't get to decide my life choices, and we didn't come here to discuss my life choices. So why are we talking about my life choices? Right? Am I discussing with you your life choices? Do I come up to you and say that shirt doesn't really go with those pants? Something ridiculous like that, because that's what it sounds to me, right? But anyways, because, like I said, it's a thorn in my side and it's a constant thing that I have to deal with by existing in this society the way that I am. It's something that I address. If I'm measured by it, that I have to address it, for sure. It absolutely is a way of silencing women, and it's a way of saying, it's putting women back into our place, right? Basically, that's what it is. And when you recognize it for what it is and just basically tell a guy more or less, you're like, oh, you're the bad person because you're the bad person because you're gonna tell a bloke like, just stick it up wherever, it's none of your business. We didn't come here to discuss my attire. Right? So it's absolutely a way to silence women. Absolutely, So, and then this is the kind of thing. People want to come to community drunk and want us not to say something like, who's drunk? Anybody drinking here? right? Speaking of drinking, we were actually talking about drug and alcohol abuse and how that was linked to self-esteem and how that was linked to, the society's views, right? So I don't know where this like drunk comment is coming from. I really don't like to block people, but if you get out of line, I'm gonna have to block you. So sit one accent could joke and give your opinions respectfully, you know? See, edable could joke, see one accent could joke, you know? And it's like some guys, some Somali men especially, right? They come on here and it bothers them a lot that to see a woman that they can't control. And they get into this like tipsy, something crazy happens inside of them and they just can't help themselves, So I think it's cute, it's like just seeing them throw that like temper tantrum is just really hilarious that time. And it's like, you're the better sex. Okay. How you are you? All right. So if you don't have like any contributions other than wanting to put women in their place, then we can move on. Because I don't know really. I can't, I deal with like 15-year-olds. So like I teach 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds that behave better than this, that share their opinions more respectfully than this, that look at multiple angles and can critically think and analyze like multiple places, And it's just so sad, right? Like it's an adult, like an adult, which goes to show you like da'da markasta ma aha inaad qofka like ka aqli badanta. Maybe waayo aragnimo waad haysataa, maybe xoogaa waad soo noolaatay, right? But it doesn't mean you're smarter, right? I literally teach 15, 14-year-olds that can critically analyze issues better than that. And that are not dismissive of people's experiences. That can understand that, hey, I haven't seen that and that hasn't happened to me, but I understand and I respect, that that's your experience. And I'm sorry that that has happened to you, by the way. Like, so not only do they see from your perspective, they empathize with you as a human being. They apologize that that even happened to you, that you were made to feel that way, right? 14 and 15-year-olds, which gives me hope really in the future, which is why I'm an educator. I love engaging with young people because wallahi, they put back that hope in me. I look at society and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I see the young people and I'm like, oh, it's going to be okay. All right. So good people, I like usually to be on for an hour because, live stream is a live stream. I love the engagement. I love the discussion. Well, I really do. And, let's discuss this further. The biggest takeaway here is that belonging matters, self-esteem matters, and we build our children, and let's not break them down. And we value all community members. And if something should happen and they make mistakes and do things that are otherwise to whatever norms that we've established, we welcome them home. And we don't just let them out to the wolves and then cry about we have opiates crisis and we have mental health crisis when we just discard people and dispose of them like they're worthless. That's the biggest takeaway. You keep people near and dear and you continuously show them that they're valuable members of our community, right? And help them. Because opiate crisis and drug and alcohol abuse are health issues. And the acts are bad, and the human being is not bad. The acts are bad because they have psychological and physiological detriments to us. And we explain to our children the physiological and psychological detriments of drug and alcohol abuse. And don't just say, no, we tell them this is bad for you because this is what it does to your body. Because this is what it does to your mind. Because when you become addicted, you will literally be sick if you don't take it. Okay? It will affect your relationships. It will affect your prospect of a good future. Right? And that's it, really. Any last comments? Because more than an hour, I'm just usually like, I just got an hour, hour of my day, the rest of my Sunday. We're gonna watch this new show that we started. It's on Netflix, by the way, and it's Jurassic Park. So this animated series, Jurassic Park. I highly recommend it. And then I think I need to play some Minecraft because I haven't played Minecraft in a while. I'm a total noob, so the kids got to show me some moves. And I'm going to try them because tomorrow is the work day and I got to go to work tomorrow. So today's my last free day. Thank you, Abay Ma'anta. I love you too. Want to give you that really credit of really uplifting me and moments where I was done pulling me back and telling me, you belong. Thank you. I really appreciate that Kayira Somali mkufasari karta. Really, next time I would like to be honest, a lot of times, I speak English. It's a result of immigrating, like I said, to another country and adjusting to another environment. That's what it is. This is what I'm most comfortable in. Marmar qaarkood af Somali waan ku tuurtaa, waan isku dayaya, but I can't make any promises that consistently af Somali waan ku hadlaya because it's not the way that I usually express myself. At some point, the language that you're the most comfortable with is the language that you think in or dream in. So at this point in the game, I think and dream in English. So it is what it is. Somaligan xogaa waan baranaya, isku dadayaya, we'll see. All right. I just really want to thank you again for your time here today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for spending, if you were here from the gate or whatever amount of time that you were here, thank you for spending your time with me. Your time is valuable. It's one of the most valuable assets that you have as a human being. And I really, really appreciate that you've given me your time. There's nothing really better that we can give people than our time. So let's spend time with our families, with people that we love, with people that we care about, because there's nothing more valuable that we can gift other people than our time. So I want to thank you. Thank you very much for giving me your time. Mahadsanidin walaalayaal. Khayr ma isku ognahay. Waa inoo mar kale. Inshallah next Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern time zone. UK, I think it's like 8 p.m. And I think in East Africa, right? Homeland is homeland. It's around 10 p.m. Eastern time. That's when I come on. Ma'asalam. I'm sorry, I have to share this comment. Somebody said, don't just vote. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or other. Pray and then vote. Right? All right. Ma'asalam, guys. Ma'asalam. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.